It's freaking hard. And she was selling each pixel for $1. She made $1 million.
Yeah.
So we were using computer vision to detect some movements and interactions between you and virtual objects. Everybody's going for the B round, the C round, and the bigger the round, the more successful you are. I burned out completely. I left.
There aren't product teams, like people don't have those departments.
What keeps the company going is, again, the analogy with a car, is traction. So if you are radical about Waterfall,
Hi everyone, welcome to the 4th episode of the Stragedy podcast, where we talk tragedies and strategies of product management, requirement management, startups, all that nice stuff. Today with me I have Igor Modino. He's a guy with a Russian name, born on Canary Islands, Spanish, that ended up in Croatia. I worked under him for some time. I learned a lot from this guy, and I hope that you will learn from him as well. Welcome to the Stragedy podcast.
Thank you very much for the nice words, for having me here. Congratulations on the startup, on the podcast, on the YouTube channel. I think you're doing a great job here.
Yeah, we're trying. Usually the podcast starts with sort of like a intro to your education, and then we go to career. So if we can spend some time on that.
Sure. Maybe we will interleave it, because I kept studying while working for quite some time. So as you said, I'm from the Canary Islands, from Tenerife. Many people ask me, why did you leave that to come here? Great place for holidays, not so great when you are ambitious and want to work in something with that is significant. But I always liked technology, so I decided very early on to study computer engineering. I did the bachelor and the master's, and I started working as a developer before I finished my master's. When I started working, I liked the business side of it, and money in general. I think we all like money.
You don't say.
Yeah. So I went back to university. While I was working, I started studying business science with a friend. So work both was until 3 p.m. for the public sector. And from 3:30 we had classes until 8, 9 p.m. So I did the bachelor in business science.
So just so I understand, you studied, then you started working in parallel to your studies. You finished one bachelor, no?
The master's.
All the way to masters. Then you came back and basically
worked.
worked.
Same job, started studying something different, business science, the bachelor. Yeah.
So that's what I call dedication.
Yeah, it was hard, it was fun, but yeah, it was, looking back, it was the best decision.
Okay, and these jobs that you were working back then, are they something noteworthy or just entry-level positions?
I was a Java developer for the public sector, private company, but for the public sector. So basically in the Canary Islands, it's agriculture, tourism, or public sector. So working for the public sector, nothing groundbreaking. And because of different circumstances, I became technical lead in the same company for a different project, and then project manager after I finished the business science. But I was an engineer. I'm an engineer at heart, but I was super nerdy back then. I was a hardcore engineer.
Okay.
I had no idea about how to manage people, how to manage expectations, everything you need to know about project management. So I...
Did you prior to you becoming a project manager that time, were you working under a project manager? So
Yes.
did you see, let's say, a good or a bad example of what good project management should be before you taking over the role?
Yes and no. So the reason why I and two other guys became project managers is because this guy was not doing a good job. He had some personal issues actually that became professional issues. So yeah, it was not the best example. But at that time, when you are a hardcore engineer, you see project management as just looking at Excels and that's it, not doing a proper job. It's freaking hard. Like talking with people, especially when you are in a not great position in the delivery of the project, it's hard to talk to customers.
And somewhat project management, even though it's a parallel vertical, let's say, it still looked at sort of authority, and you were young. So was that an issue? You coming and managing people Probably
I
younger.
was not so young back then, so I grew. I became technical lead, as I said. Back then, by the way, I had long hair, like out to here.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, that I didn't know.
My metal time.
Okay.
I cut my hair at 30. That personal, drop here.
Yeah, that's a milestone that I missed.
Yeah. Then I became project manager, I think 30, 31. So
Okay, so-
not so young, but yeah, inexperienced in that area. Times of wearing suit and tie every day, who would have said?
Was that like a mandatory thing, dress code, or you were dressing for the role?
Not necessarily, but I was dressing for the role. But I mean, when you have a meeting with a big customer, you
Yeah.
should be with your suit and tie. Project manager, then working a bit on different things, working mainly for the public sector, so preparing tenders, doing recruitment, everything like middle manager, right? And I continued studying, so I was not happy with that, so I started 2 diplomas, one in interior design and one in car mechanics. I'm a sucker for
what
cars.
was the location? Where were you at that?
I was in Tenerife. I
So
was still in Tenerife.
in Tenerife, you had car mechanics, interior design, this business masters, everything is there. Or was that online remote?
We have 2 universities in the Canary Islands. So my 2 bachelors and masters were in the University of Tenerife. These other were kind of online thing, but like a proper diploma, a further education diploma, but not presential. And yeah, I spent some time rebuilding cars, rebuilding the engine of an old Mercedes 300E, beautiful.
Like a personal project.
Personal project. Yeah, that car was from the parents of my ex-girlfriend at the time. They blew the engine, overheated, so I rebuilt it. It was great. And then tried to make an old Beetle, Volkswagen Beetle, into electric. And my idea was to do it commercially. It's when I came into contact with some of the things that we will talk later about transforming ICE cars to electric. And yeah, it was great. We were having projects. I was then doing, this mechanical thing and interior design for my own sake. I started investing, so using some knowledge from business science. It was all good until the crisis of around 2005 to 2007 that hit us a bit later than other sectors, but at some point we were losing projects. I was project manager without projects.
Yeah.
I was fired. I will not sweeten it and say what people say now. I was invited to leave. I was fired. But at the time we were starting to do business with South Africa. And that same day that I was fired, I got an opportunity to move to South Africa, and I didn't even ask for the conditions. I said yes.
That's a big move.
It is. I always wanted to live, to work abroad, but breaking the circle of comfort is really hard.
Is
sometimes.
that sort of a pattern for people from Canary Islands to move to work elsewhere?
No, I would say it's the opposite. I mean, it's hard. You have everything you need there. It's a nice life. It's a relaxed life most of the times. Being away from all that you cannot go there by car. You have to go by plane, and from some places like here is not so easy and not so cheap. So yeah, I wouldn't say so. But this was a kick in the back for me, and I decided just to go. It was a great personal experience. It was an all-black company, Zulus mainly, and it was personal. It was great. The parties back then were amazing. Professionally, not so good. So I became fed up after around 1 year of coming and going, and I decided to leave the job. I was saving money for some time. I talked with my ex-girlfriend at the time. Say, okay, I want to dedicate to my own ideas. I've been writing ideas in a notebook for quite some time, for years. Want to take a break, just do my thing, kind of the startup world. That's what I did. I left. I went back to Spain, and I started doing all kind of stuff like mobile apps, different mobile apps, mainly for Android. at the point because it was cheaper than for iOS. Everything on my own, JavaScript, no external libraries, basically, to the point that I had, polish enough that my last application I did on a Sunday morning before breakfast, before my girlfriend woke up. I just did a mobile app. It was
like in an hour.
It was
couple
around
hours.
3 hours. But
How were you choosing which app to build? Like, were you trying to solve a problem, or is it just pursuing?
And that's one of the things that you learn. Hopefully, you learn is we talk about the $1 million or the €1 million idea. And I remember a bit later on in one of the startup weekends that I went, one of the biggest investors in Spain said, ask people, how much do you think your idea is worth? And he said, your idea is worth 0.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is worth 0.
Yeah.
And many times you solve a problem, but still you don't succeed. And then you have, back then, for example, it was this lady that decided to sell an image of 1,000 by 1,000 pixels.
Mm-hmm.
And she was selling each pixel for $1. She made $1 million.
Yeah.
She didn't solve anything. It's completely useless. She made $1 million. So one of the applications was for finding parking with some probabilistic model and heat maps and so on.
Okay.
Another, I love coffee. It was for finding good coffee around you and rating it and, using some algorithms. In the Canary Islands, we have bad coffee, to be honest. So it was very useful there. And then I made some money with one about betting in football. So we have these public bets in football. In Spain, football is huge. I'm not a huge fan of football, but I started thinking, maybe what I want to solve is not something that people are willing to pay. So let's see what people are willing to pay. And that is something that people are willing to pay.
So you were like a proxy through your app, they were betting on somewhere else? Or?
I will just try to predict the result, which is pure math, pure statistics. So if it was the most probable results, I was giving actually several potential results, and people were using that for placing the bets. I was not involved in the betting itself.
So you made the model behind the predictor?
Yeah. Yes.
Not being a fan of football yourself, like.
Yeah, exactly. So I was a nerd, so I decided to go with the stats.
So maybe that yielded even better results in a way, because you were not emotional about it. You went full scientific, exactly. more scientific to the problem.
Yes. So those were some of the applications I made. None of them really took off, but it was a great learning experience. But then I started also with some friends, starting to talk about startups. One of my good friends was involved in the organization of the Startup Weekend. He invited me there.
What's a Startup Weekend?
Startup Weekend is basically an event. I think originally they were backed by Google Labs. And it's basically you take a full weekend, and there is an initial part where people that go and apply just do the pitch of their idea. And then the rest of the people decide where they want to work on. So you present a number of projects, and then everybody spreads around what project they want to work on. And then you spend 2 days working in that project, doing a POC. And at the end, you have a panel of investors that are giving you advice, mentors, and so on and so forth. And hopefully you live with some structure, some POC that you can continue working on in hopefully a company, a business.
Yeah.
So there I presented one idea that was not very successful. But then I went to work in one of the projects during the weekend that was about rehabilitation through gaming. So basically the guy that had the idea, he broke his wrist when he was a kid. He always said that playing with the Game Boy, moving the thumb and so on, helped him recover faster. So we were using computer vision to detect some movements and interactions between you and virtual objects. We did some proof of concept. It worked. We were second or third, I don't remember then.
Was it also like a mobile app, or was it?
No, this was a desktop thing, and the intention was to have like projects with hospitals or clinics and so on, and put some small PC there with a camera, television, and use it for therapy. With this project, I came to the point of agreeing on a proof of concept with a hospital there in Tenerife.
During that weekend?
No.
Later.
Afterwards.
Okay.
But then I left, so we will come to that part. But while I was there in this startup thing, it was great because there is a lot of hype, about we can do whatever, we can do anything. Then that deflates over time. But anyway, I started another project, which this guy that was involved in the organization, he was a very good friend. We both had this computer from the late 80s, the Commodore Amiga, that it was years ahead of PCs of the time in terms of graphic, audio, user interface. It has a graphical user interface when PCs were in DOS 2.0 or something like that. And the thing about that computer is that everybody that had it loved it because it was so advanced. And we all keep a box of floppy disks with games or our work or whatever.
Like a collectible.
Yeah, exactly. And that is something that those disks are standard 3.5-inch PC disks, but logically they are different. So you cannot read them in a PC. Funny enough, there was no solution in the market to read those disks. So we started thinking, what if we can do this? He studied telecommunications, studied computer engineering. So sure, we will figure something out. We started investigating, and there was a guy in the States that did something like that with an FPGA, which is a very expensive, very powerful computer. He had documentation online. We got in touch with him. He helped us, but he said, what you are trying to do will never work. So we offered him to be part of the project. He said, it will never work, but good luck. But we managed to do it. We managed to read the disks. Then we contacted another guy that was doing an emulator of this Commodore Amiga. He turned out to be Spanish. He was enthusiastic about this. He jumped in. And then we did some market research. We did a Indiegogo campaign. So back then you could not use Kickstarter in Spain. So we went to Indiegogo. And by that time, it was the most successful technological campaign in Indiegogo in Spain. We set, aim for like $1 million because our goal was not to make the product based on that, but to confirm that the market was what we thought it was.
So you just had a campaign as a market research, not as a fundraiser per se.
But now, if it succeeds, we want enough money to do it right. So we set a high threshold.
Sure.
And we confirmed that the market was where we thought.
Did you hit the million?
We didn't. We did 140,000 euros, something like that.
How does that work? If you don't hit the goal, you basically the whole campaign.
You never see the money. So the backers just give the money to Indiegogo, and if you are not successful, then you return. You have two modalities: that you keep part of it and you try to do the project, or you return everything. We return everything, so we didn't get that money. But that helped us to see, okay, there is interest, there is a market.
Did you get the contacts? Did you know who were the people? Like, could you establish any direct communication to backers?
I think we did, yes.
Because at least that's also tremendously valuable.
Yes.
Even though you didn't hit the goal, you basically have super hot leads to whatever you're building.
We got hot leads, but I don't remember right now if it was like that or we made an announcement, if you wanted, just contact us. But yeah, we started with some leads when we decided to go ahead with the project. We saw that there was market. We managed to solve this technically. So we decided to apply for some funds basically the government of Tenerife was giving funds to promote technological companies and so on. So we pitched the project. We
like
won
a
the
grant,
first place.
Grant.
Yeah, but yes, a grant. So it was 20K. We had to put the same amount. So we started with 40K. We won the first place, so we got the money. Then you have to justify it, like every public money. You have to justify it, which is really hard. But that also went well. So basically, we started full on with the software, with production. It was we developed our own PCB, our own board for reading the disks, and then a third party, also single board computer for running the emulator and reading the disk and so on. Floppy drives, 3D printed case designed by us, produced by us. So we started with 3D printing, 15 years ago when it was not really ready. It was very painful, but a lot of fun. And yeah, we started selling slowly, some promotion. We went to some fairs, Retro Madrid, Retro Barcelona, both in Spain.
Was government also helping you with this? Like, or did you have to pay for the booth,
No, they give you the 20K.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You do whatever.
Okay.
You have to spend it properly in the.
I mean, as a separate incentive, let's say.
No.
I think in Croatia, you can get this. Like, you go to the fair. There is a room by the government for.
No, we were not in any kind of project for promotion of startups or anything. We were on our own. And doing market research with what we learned from Indiegogo, trying to reach to our customers, different platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and so on. And we were lucky to know first what was the market for the original computer. We knew where it was sold, when it was sold, so we could estimate the age of the people that had it. Then the data from Indiegogo backed this. So we segmented the ads on Facebook for that kind of
very specific. You could do it very specifically, actually.
Yeah, and it worked like a charm. Like we were driving the demand by spending in ads.
I wonder what was the average age, because it would totally miss me. I never seen a Commodore Amiga piece like that. That's not something that that would make any interest for me. But what was then the average age for back then?
So the range will be between 35 and 55.
Yeah,
something like that. So it was, I think the Amiga, the original, was launched on 88 or 89. So until mid-90s was quite popular. So yeah, and we also thought that age group coming from the countries where it sold, mainly UK, France, States, Germany, at that age, people that have some money, they kind of spend in nostalgia. So the driver for this was nostalgia. You want to go back to those times. And yeah, it worked very, very well. The more we put in advertisement, transform into sales with a very good correlation. And we basically established a business, registered a company, hired a guy, got some space, 3D printing there, deliveries from China, from PCBs, soldering. It was great, selling all over the world for 2 years. And one thing that is interesting is that we were featured, for example, in Engadget, in TechCrunch, in big media and small media.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that people always ask me is, how did you manage to get featured in TechCrunch? And for me, it was very obvious. So what I did is look at the name of editors in TechCrunch, see, their ages, try to get their contact, and just send them a message. Email, Twitter, Facebook, however I could, to try to trigger this nostalgia thing. And again,
that's actually a very powerful thing that that you knew, that these guys might be nostalgic. There's a high chance.
Yeah.
And then you can really utilize that. That's very interesting.
Yeah. It works for this project. Then I was in other projects where it didn't work. Even Facebook ads that for us were like perfect. They didn't work for this other company.
So how sorry, before you move on, how many then, like, were you able to live off of ARMIGA? No, that was the product name, or were you?
No, we could have, but we weren't. So back then, my partner was a professor in 2 universities.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that was like part-time, but also was working in a technological institute there in the Canary Islands. And I was just burning through my savings. So
okay.
But most of the money was going to the employee that we had for everything, 3D printing, assembling, testing, packaging, everything, to the developer of the emulator, and then expenses, a lot of expenses in boxes, in all the PCBs, floppy drives, everything.
So it was a lot more learning than money making, let's say.
I think that the people that got the least money from that project was us. But it was lots of fun. But anyway, during that time, still involved in the startup world, another startup weekend, where after that, I became kind of friends with one guy. And after a few weeks after the event, he contacted a few of us saying, this startup is looking for a CTO if you are interested. And I said, why not? I mean, I'm just doing mobile apps. I have my own company. Why shouldn't I also do this? We had an interview, we talked, and I became their CTO. It was called Sportix. So what we were doing is a platform, software as a service for managing sport events. So from handling the inscriptions, player profiles, we also started with a kind of a social network for people that are interested in different sports, managing the courts, managing the timing, the brackets, the results, everything. It was great. They were in the biggest startup accelerator in Spain before I joined. When I joined, they were in the second biggest. And it was a lot of work. We had customers, we had traction. But for some reason, the CEO of that company at that time was focused on raising more capital, when I think we should have been focused on generating more traction, because we had loyal customers, we had more customers, our growth rate was not big enough. We should have gone international faster. We went also into esports, we did a tournament, it was successful, but at the end, we didn't spend enough into generating traction. And
I have two questions. So how transparent was the CEO in terms of runway, and were you aware why maybe they were focusing on raising more capital, or if the runway is 6 months, then obviously that's why they might have this focus. You can solve it with more demand, more sales, but as a founder myself, I'm very nervous and cautious of my runway, and
but also it's kind of the thing to do. Like back then, when you're in the startup world, like everybody's going for the B round, the C round, and the bigger the round, the more successful you are, even if you don't have enough business. So I think part was that. Part was also, it's faster to get €500,000 in 3 months than to generate it with business if you are not at that level. So I guess it's a mix of both.
The second question, sorry, I'm very interested in this hiring process of the CTO. In my case, the CTO of SwipeSpec, who is also a co-founder, is a lifelong friendship that it became natural. We sat down over a dinner. I pitched, we high-fived, and 8 months later, we started a company together. But we knew each other, we trusted each other for basically, like I said, a lifetime, since kindergarten. But then I cannot even imagine hiring a CTO in a startup from like you said, a guy connected us, we talked, we interviewed. So how long was this process?
It was pretty fast. So how this came to be is the two founders were not technical, and their product was a software as a service. So they hired a developer that was acting as CTO. Then they hired other developer. I think at that point they had 2 other ones, one full-time, one part-time, and he was coordinating everything. But that's not what he wanted to do. He was technical. He wanted to be so they wanted to find somebody that can manage the development team. And we talk about my background. So I was developer, I was project manager. This is after I was fired. I had international experience. I had my own startup, so I kind of fit everything. I knew the environment. So we talked a bit. I talked with the developers. I understood what they were doing. I was not familiar with the language they were working in PHP, which is one of the development languages that I never used before, but it's
everyone hates and 80% of the world built on it.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was pretty fast, actually. It was like a trial of a few weeks, and then we
And were
hit it
you
off.
dealing with engineering as well, like in terms of coding, hands-on, or
Yes. I still have nightmares of that code. Like trying to put one of the issues that many startups have is that you have to do something fast. You have to do your POC, your MVP. To do it fast, you don't do it well.
Yeah.
You don't do it in a well that scales for 5 years. So if you keep building on top of that, you will hit a wall at some point. But you cannot stop and rebuild it. So it's hard to start re-engineering the solution so it scales while it's in service. So it was a lot of work. But we reached to the point that it was quite good. It was just about selling at that point. So yeah, it was in those two startups. Then this other project about physical rehabilitation. I was trying to find a place for it. But as I said, I was basically burning through my savings. I gave myself 2 years for that. And it was pretty accurate. But at some point I said, okay, I'm running out of money. There is the ARMIGA project was going well. But the problem is that nobody in the world builds floppy drives anymore. We contacted everybody, NEC, Panasonic, Sony, everyone. Nobody builds them. So we were working with all new stock until we ran out of all new stock, and then it was refurbished units. And the failure rate was like 25-30%, so quite high. But still a nice side project, but I needed to do something else. So I decided to move to Ireland. So one of the guys that I hired in Tenerife moved to Ireland before, and he was trying to hire me. When I was in South Africa, I was trying to hire him. And at that point, it's like, okay, let's try. But it was actually part of a plan. So I always loved cars. I wanted to work in automotive. And actually one thing that I forgot is during these two startups and my apps and so on, I thought, okay, if I want to work in automotive, the best way is to study mechanical engineering. So I went back to university. But it was too much. I really couldn't. It would take me like 15 years to finish. So I gave up. So, okay, maybe as an embedded software developer, I can go there. So this guy was working in a company doing very low-level software, Internet of Things, this kind of stuff. So I applied. They flew me there, interview, got the job. Great. I kept working for both startups. I started working in embedded, different projects. They had their own embedded software, IoT, Internet of Things platform, but also working for Intel, projects for Intel. So I work in projects for Intel that back then, I don't know right now, but the biggest facility from Intel outside of the States was in Ireland. So it was pretty interesting to go see the fab and so on. But yeah, I'm curious, so I started a postgraduate diploma while doing that in fundraising, which is very linked to the startup world. But being then we had some meetings about this Sportix, the software as a service for managing sport events, and we decided to sell the project and close the company. And around that time, we did something similar with the ARMIGA. We were so successful. One Christmas, we just sold out, and we couldn't get new stuff on time. So we had a call, and we said, okay, we quit our jobs. We focus on this. We go to China. We stop, doing the things here. We go to China. We do everything. But there is nobody that makes floppy drives. So that will be extremely hard. The other option is we did what we wanted. It was a successful project. We were featured in places we didn't even think about. We just closed the business and continue with our lives, and that's what we did. So, yeah, closed chapter, very successful chapter.
So somewhat in your peak,
yeah,
you decided to close down, and because it was asking from you too much commitment. Let's say it's difficult to source this floppy, or borderline impossible to get components, and you have to accept the situation as is and make tough decisions. That's
exactly.
It's actually respect, man.
Yeah. And then I started another postgraduate, this time in product design, which I also love. And then I spent 2 years in Ireland. So I did 3 postgraduate. The third one was in mechanical design. And then I thought, okay, I learned, for 2 years about this embedded software. Let's try to go into automotive. So my plan was, let's aim for the stars. Like small car manufacturers that make very high-end products. And very few come to mind. At that moment, it was Koenigsegg in Sweden and Rimac here in Croatia. I sent the CV, and Rimac replied. We had an interview. They made me an offer. So I was ready to fail, learn, go, step notch below, try again, fail, learn until somebody hires me. From the first shot, they made me an offer. I think it was the right time for that. And I came. I didn't know much about Croatia. I remember the times of the war, seeing it on the TV every day. Different people fighting different people. It was a mess. Other than that, not much. And that's how I ended up here working in Rimac. This was actually I still had the ARMIGA project. I finished that. I closed that project when I was already in Croatia. And then I did another postgraduate that hopefully will be useful for the company in total quality in logistics and production. But from there it was basically like life in Rimac.
What's your number? Do you know what is the body count in Rimac when you joined?
So when I joined, we were 190 people, but some of those were externals and so on. So the number in my badge is way lower than that.
Okay.
I joined Rimac as an embedded software developer. First project was the Aston Martin Valkyrie battery management system slave. But soon we moved to the electronic control units in the Nevada. So from the very beginning of the Nevada, it was a team of 2 people. It was me and a guy that basically just finished university. He was a junior. And we had to do all the electronic control units in the Nevada. Everything.
Yeah.
Except the battery and the motors. And then the team grew. I moved quite fast from being embedded software developer, team lead, then product development lead, project manager, taking care of everything related to the electronic control units in the Nevada, from software, hardware, mechanical integration, validation, all the testing, absolutely everything, production, coordinating. Of course, I had people that were lead each area, but coordinating everything. And it was great. That time, it was a huge amount of work, but the passion of the people back then. I'm extremely proud of the team I built there. The 2 teams I built in 2 different times. Like, I remember being there doing the commissioning of the first mule until 5 a.m. one day and another day, or waiting. The time that we took the first prototype to Geneva, when COVID hit and they canceled Geneva, when the car was on the way. That night we were like 1, 2 in the morning just waiting for the mechanics to finish, their job so we can start with our job. Around 1:30 in the morning, just watching videos, eating shit and waiting for our turn. We finish early in the morning, the car shipped, and they canceled Geneva. So a lot of work, but it was great. Then I moved to, this was in what was called components engineering, so doing infotainment, doing the ECUs, doing the batteries and so on for the car, to the part that builds the car. It was vehicle engineering, a system engineering manager. We met each other before, but there is where you were in one of my teams, my team. And also great commitment for the team. It was a lot of work. It was hard because still in the automotive world, a lot of people see the car as a mechanical thing. When the mechanical thing is known, of course, you can have better suspension, worse suspension, the engine, different things, but it's a known thing. But there is more and more software and computers like hardware in the cars. That is very often overlooked. Like software, it's just software. It's like it's a huge thing. So it's a constant battle with all the mechanical engineers that just see the mechanical part and you see just the electronic part. But it was fun. It was during the already prototypes of the Nevera, validation prototypes, until I became, after the merge with Bugatti, I became chief engineer for electronics and software. And then is when we started properly the production of the Nevera, working in the next Bugatti, which is now public, the Tourbillon, and so on. So a lot of work. So after 5 years, I decided that it was time for me to leave. I gave everything for the Nevera, and then I think we were all looking for the Nevera to start production, start selling, go to support, take a breath, take some holidays, recharge the batteries, and continue. But there was no break. It was full on. Now with Bugatti, new platform, new car, hybrid. So yeah, it was, I burned out completely. I left and I decided to stay in Croatia. I love it here and look for something that I like. And now I joined once again as software engineer in a company. It's called Visage Technologies. It's making basically artificial intelligence and computer vision. So everything for face tracking, face recognition, different kind of things we do as software development kits that then other companies can do basically whatever application they want. Then I became team lead and now I'm engineering manager there. But now we are more vertical. We decided to go into some segments and I am basically in the beauty segment. So we do virtual try-on of beauty products. We do skin tone estimation based on your picture or a video. And we recommend products from different manufacturers that can suit you. You can try them virtually and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm at the moment.
How come you didn't move out of Croatia? Like now after, let's say, this big chapter, Rimac, Bugatti Rimac, and you are a mover, obviously. You moved all over the place. So
one of the reasons is that I love it here in Croatia. I think people are very nice, the way of living. One thing that actually kind of shocked me when I moved from Ireland, I got used to the way of living in Ireland, but let's say it's very boring for somebody Mediterranean. After work, you go home, you go to the pub. The pub obviously is not a terrace because it rains every day. First days here, like seeing people in the terrace having coffee, having a beer, it was like heaven. And it's very similar to how we live in Spain. But I don't understand Croatian yet after almost 8 years. So I'm kind of isolated of the same kind of problems we have in Spain. We are very similar, Spanish and Croatian. So I kind of live in a bubble, which is beautiful. And I also wanted as few changes as possible. I was completely burnt out. Just wanted to change one thing. It was that. And just get back on my feet. And still 2 years after that, I'm still here. So
I want to steer the conversation a little bit on my turf now for specs, requirements, and stuff like that. As you know, my startup SwipeSpec, we are building this deeply AI integrated spec writing tool, and I struggled a lot throughout my career with writing specs and requirements on time with the high enough quality. There's an anecdote. While I was working in one of your teams, we even developed a tool to visualize requirements and coverage of requirements to track my progress, let's say, so that I can have, it went both ways. I can have a number to show you, yes, I wrote it, this is now the new coverage, it's increasing in coverage, and you also, as a manager, had a number that finally you can look at as a metric for me, but throughout your career in many different roles you had, is this struggle, this problem that I want to solve with my startup, is that something that you also recognize as an issue? Or
it's a huge problem in all industries. And I think if we look back in history, how we came, especially to this kind of dissonance between waterfall development and agile, it's back like sectors, industrial sectors like automotive or aerospace, aviation, and so on, are very strict in many things. Like you are playing with the lives of people, and big amounts of money. So you have to be sure what you're doing. So you have to specify everything. You have to specify how it should work and what should happen when something doesn't work as expected, which is something that is very usually not taken care of in software. And it's for that reason, because it's a very high stakes, potentially human lives also at risk if something goes wrong. So you want to have everything properly documented, specified, reviewed, tested again, your checklist, everything is green, everything is fine. That's why you need proper specs.
Yeah.
When you go to software, that it's about irrelevant stuff most of the times. Applications I did will never put at risk the life of anybody. It's not so important, let's say. So people start overlooking many things. And one common issue I find in product managers, product owners, is to define the green path.
Like green path.
Green path is what happens when everything goes okay. You click this button, this happens. You click this button, that happens. What happens when something doesn't work as expected? You have problems with your database, with communications, with whatever. So all that error management is usually overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
And then nobody likes, as you also mentioned, nobody likes to just write requirements. So that is hard. It's a tool that avoids that you just write requirements. That is great. There are people that like it, but most of the people don't. People like the ideation and so on, and write some things, some bullet points, but not go into the nitty-gritty. And having worked in automotive, when you see, for example, functional safety, the amount of requirements you have, the level of details of the requirements to guarantee that things work properly. And that is also going back to Agile in general, is sure that takes time. Waterfall takes time. If everything is, even if things are specified properly, there are miscommunications and so on. So doing sprints, smaller steps, smaller deliveries, working together with a product owner, product manager, whatever. So you don't write the requirements, you just do it. It's great for a startup. For a POC, for an MVP, that's great. When you start scaling, you cannot continue working like that. So always, in my company now, we are in this tricky position that we are not startup. We are not a big company. We have some processes. We have to continue improving. Requirements is a solved issue, so we are aware of the requirements. But you need to rely less on the people and more on the system. Yeah. Just because when you go from one developer that is great to 10 developers, not all of them are great. Not all of them have the same idea. There are misalignments. So you cannot rely on the people. You need to rely on processes and so on. So you have to give people their work already processed in a way. You have to tell them what they have to do. Those are the requirements. What you want to achieve technically, functionally, at all different levels. But that is a constant issue. I think it will continue to be until there are proper tools, maybe like yours.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that a lot of people are comfortable and okay and like that brainstorming session, those high level bullets. But then going from that to structured, unambiguous thing is what takes a lot of time, and in some way, through maybe question back and forth, can be automated. And this is what we are trying to do and to solve. Another problem is that people love Excel. A lot of people write requirements in Excel. To me, it's crazy to consume and to produce textual content in Excel. Then if you go directly to Jira, it's again so many fields, so many drop downs, so many options. So Jira is not a place for creative writing. So what I found myself throughout my previous roles, when I had to write a bunch of these requirements, I would go to a note-taking app, as clean as possible, and accept that at the end of my spec writing, let's say, session, I'll have to spend half an hour, 3 hours a day in copy pasting and putting it from where I was comfortable writing to where it needed to end up. So we are actually really focusing on this to give you this clean white space where you can do the creative writing. You can use AI to organize, to restructure, and then through integrations you can push it where it needs to end up, be it Jira, Trello, other tools. I have a trick question now for you, and there is no right answer.
Okay.
How do you define the difference between project manager, product manager, and product owner? A lot of people, I was at some part of my career, I had a role of product manager. I believe that throughout most of end of my career in Rimac, I was doing product management work, but I wasn't called that way through many reasons. But I also know that seniors from other departments, from body and trims, mechanical engineers, were coming, and they were like project, like they were always confused. So maybe how would you do the split? How would you?
As you said, there is no right answer. It depends also in the industry, but I can give you an example of my current company. So the product manager, it's a very high level. It's like what problem are we solving? For whom? In contact with the customers, what does the customer need in non-technical terms? Mm-hmm. Then we have the product owner that translates that into product. He is the one. So the product manager in our case writes very high level requirements, like the ideation phase. Then the product owner breaks it down into more technical and functional requirements. And both are working in a product. That product can be your project or cannot be. In our case, it's not. So we have our product. Then we have projects that are the adaptation and using of that product by different customers. Mm-hmm. So that's how we define. For us, the project is with this product or other things for a customer.
Okay.
And there is a back and forth between project and product. So the customer can give you feedback about your product that can end up in the product as a vertical. You can improve your product because of you want some new features, and then they end up in the project. So in our case is product manager, more high level ideation, very in contact with the customer, non-technical, product owner, technical, making sure that the software that is being written is achieving those high level requirements. Project manager is dealing with specific customers and the application of our project for their needs.
And who takes care of the timing? Project manager.
In our case, it's a bit different because it's almost selling an off-the-shelf product with some customization. So who defines the timing of the projects is the product. Mm-hmm. So at this point, we have a set of features. We want to extend our product to sell it to the customers. So those features are coming from the product side. It could be in a different way, but as we are very vertical, we are basically selling our product with some customization is the product that dictates the timeline.
And in terms of org chart, is the product owner sort of in the same team but works under a product manager, or are they not related in terms of org chart? Who is a manager of who? So one is the work responsibilities. So I understand product manager, high level product owner defines more technical functional requirements, and this is the pipeline. But in terms of managing as a team member, are they related or?
They are in the same team, in the product team, and they are at the same level. So, okay. And that is also, there is no right answer. It depends what is your product, what are your customers. If it makes sense that your product manager is the one that makes all the decisions because maybe he's the one that has all the experience, he knows, he has the contacts in the industry, he's the one that will lead the sales.
Yeah.
Then he should be the one setting the direction. If that's not the case, it doesn't need to be like that. I don't see there is a hierarchical relation between them per se.
Okay. Another let's say confusion, and this is less so the thing from my observation in the States, but here in Europe, there aren't product teams. Like people don't have those departments, and you know, at some point I was the first product manager in Rimac. Later on, that's scaled. But how would you recognize that a team needs a product role, a product person?
Basically, when you have a product, it's kind of too obvious, right? You need somebody that. So the thing is that the word itself says it, but if you don't know the meaning of why those words are exactly product owner, then you don't know that you need a product owner. You need somebody that makes sure that the product is up to the standards, quality, and functionality that it has to be for getting the customers that you want to get. So one of the things also that are usually overlooked, especially in startups and companies that are growing from startup, is things that just happen. You have a bunch of engineers, you tell them as a group what to do, and things that happen. No, you need somebody that is owner of something and pushes and care only about that. So when you are a software factory, you don't need a product owner because you don't have a product. You work for others. When you have a product, whether it's software, it's something physical that has to serve some purpose, have to have some functionalities, or even if it's just one, and have to perform in a certain way, you need somebody that is making sure that what you are producing is what you wanted to have, what you can sell, what the customers want. And that is, once again, its requirements. How do you know what the product needs to do? Either is your own idea, you have your vision, you know that the product has to do A, B, A, C in this way, or you talk with customers and they say, we need a product that does this, or you should improve your product so it does this other thing. And then those are features or functionalities that then you break down into how they should work, requirements again. So you need it when you have a product, basically.
Yeah, and then, but if you're like a startup and growing, obviously I am now doing the product work for SwipeSpec as a CEO for it. Hopefully we survive, we scale, we get bigger. At which point you think I should be starting to hire into product team? When my workload gets too much for other stuff, fundraising, selling, so it's more a workload thing, or you think that a dedicated product person, especially with experience, can bring more to the table than self-taught CEO of a company?
That's hard because it depends on many factors. Because if you generate enough traction, the sooner the better. So you have a product owner, you have a CEO, you have many things. When you are in a startup, you wear all the hats.
Yeah.
But you are still each of those hats. As soon as you can decouple those hats and those profiles, the better. But you have to do it when you have enough traction, obviously. If you start now hiring different people and you don't have money to pay their salaries, then you shouldn't have done it. If you get to the point that your workload with all the hats is too much and you still don't have the traction, maybe it's time to be realistic and the business won't work. If you have traction and you can hire those people and you still continue wearing those hats, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe you should start bringing more people because you are already successful in the market. So yeah, it depends case by case, but if you have the traction as soon as possible.
From your experience in this startup weekend and talking to working at different startups, how do you define traction? Is it directly correlated with revenue or?
Yeah, so traction is basically recurring income. You can define it in different ways. If you have a subscription model is one of the things you bring in is the loyalty of the customers. If you have a lot of dropouts after 1 month, then something is wrong with your business. Even if you keep getting customers, long term, if you don't change something, it won't work because people will just know that your product is not good. And if you convert leads into customers, and they are loyal, and your dropout is small, then you have recurrent revenue with the same product. So traction is basically income. It's number of customers or amount of money the customers pay. It's generating business. So you start from nothing, and it's really like a car generating traction. You have to start moving. So traction is what moves the business, is not investment. Investment is what kickstarts the business, because you need to spend money to get somewhere. But at some point you need to get business to keep moving, and that is attraction.
So let's say a startup is operating in a sort of freemium model, free sign up, and you can kite before you hit the paywall. So there can be a lot of usage, but not many conversions into paid customers. Or therefore, imagine we can show you, 1,000 customers daily using the tool for 3 hours, but there aren't many paying customers out of this 1,000. Would you consider that in some form of traction?
No.
Or no?
No, and if you look at the conversion funnel, what is at the bottom is the paying customer. So this trial is not at the bottom, and you want the paying customers. Because if your product is used by everybody in the world and nobody gives you a cent, you will not have a business. You will have a free service for everybody. What keeps the company going is, again, the analogy with a car, is traction. If the car is spinning its wheel, it's going nowhere.
Yeah.
You need physical traction in that case. In this case, to continue moving on in the business, you need money. It's what keeps the business going is money at the end of the day. So you need paying customers.
Sometimes I'm really surprised how smart these freemium, free to use, free to start using, and then how smart they are about these features and the amount of feature usage before you have to start paying. So I'm using this accounting tool for invoices and for receipts. It's called Solo.com HR. And it's amazing. I recommend it to everyone. But it's like you can sign up for free. You have 3 monthly free invoices, and there is a cap of €1,000 per invoice. So you cannot invoice more 1,100 euros to anyone. And I was using it for free I'm using this tool for 10 years now, but I was using it for free, very, very early on.
You are still using it for free for 10 years?
No, I'm not, no longer. So they are amazing with these caps of 3 invoices or receipts per month, or any bigger number than €1,000. Now you need to start paying. And with Notion, we use Notion, paid Notion, like it's the number of blocks, it's the number of team members, it's the number of public versus GitHub was before. You couldn't have in a free account, you couldn't have private projects. So everything had to be public. We now in SwipeSpec have to think also about how to offer something for free so that you can get the taste of it, but then draw a line. So this is an interesting challenge, and I feel, given these examples that I gave and many others, probably if you do this research, like it feels to me like such smart people figured it out for them, and now I'm in the position that I need to figure it out for myself.
Yes.
And I think I will have to observe people using, how they use in some pattern, and then see, okay, yes, if I draw this line out of all of these people, these would be then paying paying customers, and that would be sort of the approach, let's say, that I would take to figure this out.
Yeah, it's hard. It also depends on what you are selling. In our case, with the Sportix, this platform for sport events, if I remember correctly, the free plan was 3 months, everything for free.
Mm-hmm.
And the catch is captive customer. So once you have the data of your competition there, and you have players there with their profile, with their results, they will want to stay there.
Because they invested so much time in putting it in.
Yeah, you already are not only used to the system, but maybe you have played in 2 tournaments, and you have your stats, you have like global rankings and so on. You don't want to lose that information.
Yeah.
So also the players will want that the events are done through the same tool. So that is, obviously it doesn't apply to everything, but it's a very good way to keep customers in. It sounds kind of evil, the captive customer. We are giving you this suite for free, but then you will be with us forever. But at the end of the day, you are giving a service, it's a business, you need money, it's what it is.
Back to Waterfall versus Agile, which one do you prefer?
I always said...
Controversial.
Very.
Yeah, but
I always said I never seen Waterfall work. Never, ever. So,
but you did for Agile.
Yeah, Agile works. Waterfall also, but with some asterisks along the way. So if you are radical about Waterfall, everything is a black box. You start with your input requirements, you are a black box, you output more requirements, then at some point you output something, a product, a software, whatever. And I think that most of your viewers will relate to this image. What the customer wanted, it's like they want a swing in a tree, and what they end up getting, nothing to do. Because things get lost in translation. You also, in one of your videos about tips, talk about the importance of the verb should, shall, must.
Yeah.
These kind of things are, we can use the language in a relaxed way when we should be very, very specific. So otherwise you don't get what you want. Also the fact that business analysts don't need to know about technology strictly may make the design of the solution not the best for the technology that you're going to use. So there has to be some overlap. And I had many years ago a discussion with an analyst that was a very good friend about this. She was saying, me as an analyst, I don't need to know anything about the technology you will use. And I said, well, you don't need to, but it will be easier or harder to implement what you want with one technology or the other, or you can accommodate somehow. Scrum or Agile, in general, Scrum is just a process for Agile, works because you are basically hands-on doing the thing and checking the thing that it's exactly what you want, constantly.
Mm-hmm.
The sprint can be 1 week, 2 weeks, it can be 1 day, it can be whatever you want. You can be constantly doing that. That's why it works. The problem comes afterwards. It's a problem we have now. In the company, not a problem, it's something we need to improve, like any engineering company's documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have one of the things about the Agile Manifesto is working software over extensive documentation. Some people take it as working software over documentation.
Period. Okay.
Yeah, it's not. You need documentation. You need high-level documentation. You need to be able to explain to somebody what your system is doing. Not to the detail, not looking at the code, but you need that. I remember when I became project manager, one of the projects was a software for a public administration. We were doing Scrum training. I became Scrum Master certified then. The company was a big company, CMMI, which is an index for maturity of the company, level 4, so very, very mature, very strong processes. We measured that project management took around 33% of the budget of a project. So a lot of bureaucracy, let's say. We implemented the Scrum within that, and it worked like a charm. We have an initial set of requirements. We said to the customer, in 2 weeks, we see you, we come here with our laptops, we show you what we have done. He goes through that. Oh yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. This is not what I wanted. And the fact that he realized when he sees the product that what he wanted is not what he really wanted. What he specified doesn't work as he thought. And being able to change, that works very, very well. I think that for most projects, but again, it's not everything is the same. If you are doing a rover to go to Mars, you can test some concepts, but at some point you have to do a lot of math, a lot of simulation, and be sure, specify everything so to the best of your knowledge, it will work in Mars, because you cannot go to Mars to check every sprint, right? So there you have to use Waterfall.
But isn't it, even in a non-Mars example, a bit wasteful, this, what you said, like we will implement to show that what you asked is not what you actually wanted? It sounds wasteful.
No, you don't do it to show that it's not.
Yeah.
You do it to check if it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's, what you did is exactly what the customer wants. Sometimes it's not. Because also when you are specifying a software from a blank sheet of paper, it's abstract. Right? You need to see it working to see that it really is what you expected.
I know I've been researching because we want to insert ourselves in both, ideally both Waterfall organizations, but also in these scrums, so that these small amount of spec that you are preparing for a sprint, you also do and maintain in SwipeSpec. And so I was checking like problems with Scrum, what people think, and apparently in almost everywhere it's misinterpreted, misunderstood. And one interesting example that I didn't know, because I didn't go deep, I didn't read the manifesto or anything, is that product owner shouldn't be on a daily meeting.
Yes.
And from little experience that I have with let's say working in Scrum, they absolutely were in every meeting.
No, and there is a reason for that. In our case, for example, we are following a Scrum. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
But it's very good, actually, how the company is doing it. The product owner is not. And the reason is you let the engineers, you let the team do its work according to your specs. And at the end of the sprint, you check that what they have done is what you wanted. Then there should be a feedback loop. Either they are not doing what you told them to do, or you are not specifying the things properly, and you should improve. If you are in the dailies, you will be doing that constantly, and there will be no feedback loop. It will be like a constant. I think it won't be useful. So at some point, it's also about, let the people do their job, but check it regularly. That's why you have sprints. That's why you don't wait until the end of the waterfall to check. But also not daily.
And have you encountered any hybrid between Waterfall and Scrum?
Most of the things are hybrid. So you will use Scrum, not Scrum, Agile, for example, in a very early startup where you just have ideation and you want from your idea to test the concepts right away. You won't write a single requirement. You may make some sketch, may not even do a sketch. If you are technically good enough, you may, go straight to doing things. For example, when I was doing my applications, they were very small things. I went straight to prototyping in code what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you need to have requirements in some shape or form. Drawings, text, whatever. What we are doing now is exactly the same. We are preparing a few sprints in advance, taking epics that are just ideation high level, breaking down into story. We are using Jira like most of the people. And then inside the stories, write down the requirements there, which is quite functional. You don't have, traceability. You cannot cross-check, but for our use cases, it's fine. Then we have somewhere else extracted from all the stories, the checks for doing validation, not down to the level of requirement. Some of them are down to that level, but we keep improving that. But I think most of the cases is hybrid.
And are you producing some sort of standardized document like PRD or similar. No, so everything goes directly to Jira. It's Epic story, and then
and it works. The thing that I'm pushing now for improving is this high-level documentation. I think it should be done before. We should have every product should come through a design phase.
Yeah.
That design phase are sketches, are block diagrams, are very high-level thing to know, how things interact, how things work. You can do it afterwards. At the end of the day, you will need it at some point. If your company is successful, you will need it. Somebody will ask for how the system works. I think it should be done before, but you need at least to have this thing. More than that, like requirements that will end up being text. No, if you can get away with specifying the things during the story, if you are in close contact enough with the product owner that we talk daily, weekly, whatever, we have access to the product owner always. He's very technical also, so he understands the problems. You don't need to have, this is, again, working software always over extensive documentation. Documentation for me, you have to have as much as needed and as little as possible. So
that's a highlight there.
Yeah.
What about QA? Like if you don't have written specs,
Yes,
let's say, or you have as little as possible, and QA is not part of the product team, how do they quality check?
Even if it's part of the product team. So at that point, you need to do something with your requirements. Even if you have your requirements scattered around the body, the description of the stories, you will need to extract it somehow and use another tool. You can go through all your Jira tickets or stories or whatever and start testing. That's not useful. So even in our case, we end up with an Excel that we all hate and love. Just with the requirements for different areas, what requirements, what tests. It's not only requirements, it's tests at the end of the day, what you have to extract tests that allow you to verify that a requirement is met.
Yeah.
That is critical. And that is something that is, again, overlooked in many cases because either technological companies are not led by technological people and they don't know how the development process works, or the engineers that are working are just, software engineers that I always said, we all develop tunnel vision.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems of software engineers is that they see everything as software. And I always say there is no worse design than a design made by an engineer. And I'm an engineer, so I know. We usually overcomplicate things. We see everything from our point of view. There has to be somebody from the outside that keeps an eye on that. And also somebody that keeps an eye on quality. And the only way to verify that something works as it should is knowing how it should work. And how do you know? Either you have everything in your mind and you will forget something, or you have it written. So we come back to we need documentation. We need to have these things written down. You need to have how to test something, because the person that will define how something is tested maybe is not the person that will test it.
Yeah.
So you need a procedure, how to test it, what to expect, what is okay, what is not okay. Test procedures. Again, it depends on what you're doing, on the size of the company. You have to have something, as little as possible, but as much as needed. If you need more details, back to the times of Rimac, automotive company, so serious stuff. If you remember, we defined that ourselves, the quality team and the system engineering, what we want to test, how we want to test it, what are the expected results, and we were doing that in Excel. So that is very, very important, quality assurance.
One other thing that I know I struggled before, and we talked before about it, is subjective to measurable. So what I'm trying to say is that there are cases, when the requirement says it has to be nice, it has to feel this way or that way.
It has to feel premium.
Yeah, it has to feel premium, but what is premium? And I know I lost some battles with some departments, over whether feature will get implemented or not, because they came with very concrete numbers in terms of weight and cost of something, and I wasn't able to deliver my the weight of my input, because it was it's gonna be important to the customer, or to what do you mean when you say it needs to be nice? So maybe before I spoil, say my answer to it. What are your thoughts on that? Like, and do you encounter this now also in this software company?
I think there are two things that I want to mention there. One is, when it's subjective, somebody has to have the authority to say what is good, what is bad. And that authority it's an external factor.
Yeah.
So somebody, the CEO of the company, whomever has the authority, has to give the authority about that specific area to that specific person. That person will say, this is good, this is not good, and he or she has the authority. The other is benchmarking. That's benchmark. Where are you positioning your product? What are what is the competition? What is the competition above, below? Benchmark the competition, and that will tell you what is. You can objectivize it. If you remember the development of the Nevada, talking about the knobs, how should they feel? What is a right click?
Yeah.
A click is something that it's
Haptic
not
feedback.
too weak. It has feedback, no backlash. It has to be solid. You can test many things. You can test, even we were talking at some point, you can check the knob of a microwave. How does it feel? It's loose. Do you want this in your car? At the end, you ask yourself, I want this in my product?
Yeah.
No. And what is this? It clicks every quarter rotation, every 1,000 of rotation, whatever. It's too loud, too quiet, too much feedback, too less feedback. By benchmarking, you can do everything down to objective things. And in one road trip with one ex-colleague of us, we were talking about cars, and I said that I always wanted to hate the Porsche 911 because that car is wrong. It's from an engineering point of view, it's wrong. The engine in the back. Now, Porsche has done so much work to make it work that it's amazing. When I drove it first time in track, when I cut my hair at 30 years old, I wanted to hate the car. I love it.
Yeah.
And I said that everything works as it should. Everything, the feel of everything. And I was talking about the gear shift. It's short, it's clicky, it's weighty, but it's not too heavy. It's, yes, but how do they... You just go down to maths. You start testing or you benchmark and you said, the travel has to be this amount of millimeters. And the force of insertion of the gear has to be this amount. Because you have tested many things and that is what gives the feeling that you want. At the end, to a certain point, is removing all passion from development. Some point like, the Porsche 11 of engineering quality is you remove all passion from the engineering. It's just pure math. You need to make this many Newton meters of force to engage a gear. The feeling, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it becomes also a challenge how to measure some of these things in a physical product.
Yes.
I know you already left, but we were buying some measurement equipment for exactly this purpose, because you need to get those values, you need to measure. There is also another way of doing it, albeit less precise, I want to say, but you can survey. You can give example of current status, survey enough people, so convert it to a number, let's say, on a certain scale, iterate, survey again, same people, and see if the score improved or if it was reduced. So that's also another way you can quantify some.
Yeah, that's very common. You have to be careful who you ask.
Yeah.
So they have to be like representative of your potential customers.
Yeah.
And that I always remember that Steve Jobs once said that when he was running Apple, he never asked the customers what they want.
Yeah.
He was just doing what, from his point of view, was the best.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work with everybody. Everybody is not Steve Jobs. So.
There is this now, I don't know if you heard of opinionated product management.
Yes.
So it's then it's one is talk to customers as much as possible, gather this data, survey averages, blah blah blah, and the other one is more opinionated. I have the vision. I have what I'll build, and this is interesting. If I look at auto industry, you can count on some of the very iconic cars from the history, but those cars were run like a dictatorship. Like there was a guy there who had this vision, and the whole company, Nevera, in a way, is also like that. Had to satisfy this person's vision, and only then it became the great product. I presume Apple, or I know from everything that I read or watched, that Apple was also run like that. That
is always, I thought about this a lot. When you have a startup, it's your startup. You do the things however you want, and when you hire the people, it's for doing the thing that you want.
Yeah.
When you make a big company out of that, like Apple, now there are more people that care about the business. There are more people that depend on the business. Should you do something that will keep the business going, or should you do what you want? That at the end, it depends. If you are the CEO, you have all the power of decision. For me, I think it's perfectly fine that you are opinionated. You want to do this, and you have built a company to do this. Do it. Like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but do it. And yeah, you're right. Like iconic cars, and even how Lamborghini, for example, started it. That's out of passion for car and because of Enzo Ferrari, and he wanted to do this, and that was his vision, his idea, and that's it. And here we are still with Lamborghini. Is it run like that? I guess not anymore. So again, like many of these things, there is a big gray area there.
I feel that's the golden age you want to be in a company. That's when it's hardest in a way, like sleepless nights, working, burnouts, but you are so hyped, so behind that vision that you can just go and do it.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I left Rimac. I mean, the burnout because of tiredness and so on, but also it became big.
Yeah.
Now Bugatti Rimac is a big company, it's an industrial company. One of the things I loved at the beginning is that we were doing everything in-house. And when we say everything, people don't understand what everything means. Every single thing. Up to, I remember in meetings talking about manufacturing our own bolts for the ECUs, because there are, you have to close the ECU, but also you have to screw it to something, so you have a hollow screw. To that level of what we did, and it's amazing. It's great, and it's, if you are aligned with what the opinion of that person, then you just go all out for that. There is an issue though. It's when you're the owner, the CEO, you have all the power, and you can do it your way. You want to do it your way, great. But you say opinionated product manager, that is tricky. Yeah, because when it's not your company, it's not your assets, I don't think you should go that way. You should always have an opinion, but I think you have to justify everything. And it's something that I always tell to the engineers. We all have an opinion, but why should we go this way? Because you said we should go this way, and the other guy says we should go this other way. Why? We should have some data to back it up.
Let's transition more now to AI. We haven't talked a lot. Visage is AI, deeply also integrated with AI. What are your thoughts on LLMs, on this, things that are happening on a high level, and maybe we dive deeper if
I will actually go back 26 years or so when I was still in university, and one of the subjects was artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. So it's something that is now, we have seen this happen a few times, but it's something that seems new, right? It's not new at all. So we were doing small neural networks back then. The problem is that the hardware was not capable enough to run any model that will do anything. But I remember doing experiments Like with this betting in football, when we were still in university, we had a group of friends that we were betting in these official bets. And in the subject of artificial intelligence, we have to do something, a neural network that will do something. And one of the friends said, okay, I will do one. I will train with historical data for the last 15 years of all the matches and all the results and so on. And let's see how good it is at predicting. It was very bad. Now the computers have the power to do this. And it's something that also happened with VR. VR was back in the 80s. We have VR. It was crap. Now the computers are able, so it's coming back. It's there are times in history where things happen that you don't know where they will go. It happened with the first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution. Happened many times. And whenever it happens, I think that we all think, yeah, this is not good because it will change what we know. It will change how we do things. It will make us dumber. It will make us lazier. That happened with everything. When I was still a kid, I remember my first computer I had when I was 6 years old. It was monochrome, like before the Super Nintendo, all these kind of things. Then arcades, game consoles, and the thing was like video games are making people stupid. No, everybody has a game console in their phone, and humanity is kind of okay still. I think it's first is unavoidable. Second, I think it's good. But also we have to measure the hype. Again, the hype. The LLMs have a limit. LLMs seem like a supernatural thing. When you interact with Claude or with OpenAI, ChatGPT, with whatever, it's great. Sometimes they hallucinate, sometimes not. But there is a cap. It doesn't matter how much money you put in, there is a cap. But there will be something else that will come out. And as much as LLMs are the public thing, like recent advances in AI are huge. Like, I remember when I was still in university, one of the biggest problems was protein folding. That is still to this day. So I didn't protein folding. Okay. So proteins, even simple proteins, the interactions between the electromagnetic fields of their components make them twist in different ways. The way they twist is what will ultimately determine their user guess. And I remember that IBM built this huge computer, the biggest computer in the world at the time, Blue Gene, just to simulate protein folding. Mm-hmm. What unlocked protein folding was Google. They did AlphaFold, and then AlphaFold 2. I was actually recently watching a video about this, how there was a competition for trying to estimate protein folding, and people tried with different things, and the level of accuracy was very low. It was established like if you managed to get 90%, so being 100% that you perfectly determine how the protein fold, and 0, it has nothing to do. If you get to a level of 90% of accuracy, you are good. Like that, it can be used. So only a few years ago, it happened. Like AlphaFold 2, I think it was AlphaFold 2, managed to surpass the 90%. And then, like, determining how proteins fold and making catalogs and their interactions and so on, it's exploded. Like from a few thousand to hundreds of millions in a few years. That has impact in all areas of life. Medicine, biology, absolutely everything. And it wasn't not my AI.
Back to your sports results thing. Do you think it was a compute issue or lack of data?
Well, it's hard to analyze now after 20-something years, but also the problem with this, as the same as with my application, is that if you predict, at the end it will predict the most probable outcome.
Yeah.
If you get the most probable outcome, you will not get money in betting. Usually you bet for something that is unlikely, and it's where the money is. So, yeah, in this case, I don't know, but it was pretty bad. I remember that it was worse than any of us. And as I said, I don't even like football, so it was not the most accurate. But I think it was the size, mainly the size. Also, when you are doing neural networks, you can do many things. So I don't know from the outside if people's perception of AI is just black magic, or they have an idea that it can be easy or hard, because sometimes it's presented like, you have this training data, you train a computer to do something, you give examples, it figures it out. You have to define how that neural network is. You need to define how many input neurons, how many intermediate layers, if we are talking about convolutional neural networks. And then you have to train, and changing the number of layers, changing the number of neurons in the layers, changing the activation function in the layers will change the output. So there are a lot of parameters. So one of the things that we do is hyperparameter tuning. You tune some of these things. You do small bursts of training, changing things, and you start taking the one that is more promising. So yeah, it's quite hard. It's a big thing. I think there will be a lot of people working on AI on different things. And as I said before, as much as LLMs are very shiny, I think there will be more things that will be coming.
Yeah, when ChatGPT came out, I was surprised. Like it surprised me. Obviously I we were surrounded already with AI, with machine learning. Your pictures were sorted by person. You could search different terms in different content, and it was extracted. All of these were signs of this, but people were not assigning this to AI. They were assigning this to, now I have a new sorting feature per face.
Yeah.
But then when ChatGPT came out, and I remember Dali was in the office when the day that it came out, and it was crap like that day, but we were mind blown that you can literally
at some point you started using that to get requirements
to get ideas. But yeah, I mean it's to me it was crazy, and now it feels that the new thing is this agents.
Yeah.
Which is like chaining different LLMs with different tools that you are narrowing down multiple narrow AIs with sort of orchestrator that can then use these narrow to yield better results. Because if you have this generalist AI, it's equally bad at everything than if you have several specialized ones at the disposal of this orchestrator. So what do you think about these agents? Like, is that the next thing, or?
It's one of the next things, but also it's interesting that right now we understand AI as neural networks, when AI, as you said, is not neural networks. So many things have been AI for many years, and they were not neural networks. Anything on decision tree, anything that allows for a computer to make decisions, even if they are defined by a person, is artificial intelligence. Now with neural networks, it's just, we don't know how that works, but I will want to touch upon that. One of the things are agents. Yes, they can be more specialized, more generalistic robotics. Of course, I think we are still pretty far from, we are very far from general use robotics. For specific tasks, they are being used, BMW with, I think, Figure. I don't know if it's Figure, the ones that they are using. They are slow. I'm sure that they cannot recover from many errors. They need human intervention. But it's a starting point. And definitely we will have agents for many things, even without knowing. I was watching yesterday the review of the new Nothing Phone 3A Pro. One of the things they were saying is like, it's the AI is not obvious. You don't have this eraser for the pictures and generate a new image and whatever. But you will take a screenshot and keep the button press, and you can have a voice note. In a voice note, you can ask, remind me for tomorrow I'm doing this thing. So things that are under the hood that you don't even notice. You interact with your devices in a natural way, and there are agents or there are different kinds of AI working underneath to do things. The fact that agents are getting, they are getting agency, so they are able also to do things in the physical world. We have to be careful with that. Because obviously when you can ask ChatGPT about things and it will just search the internet, that's the most it will do, fine. If it will start adding things in your calendar, okay, it may mess up your calendar, but who cares? When it can start sending messages without a trigger from your side, because, it knows that it should do something. We have to be careful. When we talk about robotics, we have to be very careful, honestly.
Yeah, and that example with messages is what gurus are actually pushing a lot on YouTube, productivity.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, and then...
No, as long as it works, fine, it's great. But when it starts sending messages that you don't want to people that you don't want, then it's when you lose the control. That's, for me, the problem. Because it's great when you say, okay, remind me to do something, send this message for me, do this, do that. And when it comes with proposals, great. When the agency goes to the point that it does things on its own without your trigger, I think that will be concerning.
I've seen a definition of AI agent from a certain CEO that he said chaining, like chain of AIs, where, you send a request and then one does something with the data, pushes to the next one, that next one does something, and then it's a chain. Basically, that's not how he defines agents. That he actually defines agents if the outcome is unknown at the beginning of the request, so that it self-prompts again and again, and you have also a validator AIs that are in the end the ones who will eventually either accept or abandon the task. And I think I like that definition because chains, just chain of tasks easily.
But still, you don't know the outcome.
So, I don't know the content, but okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
Well, yeah, you don't know the content, but you may know the outcome because they are meant to do something and always do the same thing, right? You don't know what would be the content. Yeah, that's right.
So we are exploring AI agents for SwipeSpec. An example of a task would be, let's say you send requirements for a review, and then you have 50 requirements in a review. A grammatical error is, let's say, repeated in 2 or 3, and then the message is like, basically you need to fix it in all the requirements. And then when I, as a writer of these requirements, I can open this AI chat, a general one, and I can say, this review, I need to now fix all of this. Go ahead and make a proposal that it understands and goes across all 50 and proposes this. So that's one example where the outcome, and it's an agent. We have the one that I communicate with. There is an orchestrator. There is the one that can go actually and fix the proposal. So it's a bunch of chained narrow AIs. But then there is another example where I can say, we are about to start a new project similar to that other project that I reference. And then I don't know whether it will go ahead, create a new project, set up all the files with picked templates and pre-fill some structure, not the actual content, but pre-fill the structure, or it will, decide to do within the current project another sort of branch or different file, prepare everything there. So this is something that now we are, let's say, struggling how to automate some of these, and how much power to give, and not. Just also a sort of a disclaimer, one of our core values in SwipeSpec is that human is always in charge. So nothing with specs is AI will generate, and it ends up in your spec. So you will always have AI draft, and we are even preserving an AI badge on things that are AI generated with the human name who accepted it, so that there is this accountability. It follows you. It's your responsibility, even though AI was involved in creation of it. But yeah,
That's exactly what I wanted to say and what I meant before. When the AI suggests you things and helps you improve. So as you said, when you have different agents that can interact in ways that you haven't pre-programmed and you don't know what will be the outcome, that is great to a certain point, depending what they can do. So if they can propose you, okay, if you are starting a new project, maybe you should do this, do that. And they can also do it, but after you confirm. That's great. And what you mentioned in your startup, I think that's great. That let AI be invented, come with things, try to improve your life, but not give control of your life. I think when we come to that point, that is Skynet at the end. It sounds, funny and maybe too agoristic, but it is what it is. If you lose control of what you do, then somebody else is in control. And in this case, is AI. And it depends what capabilities this AI has. If you give the AI the control, it can do as much as you let it do.
Sorry, guys, we had a small technical difficulty. We are back, but we were anyhow wrapping things up. I learned a lot today. I knew you for years, but I never got the whole story like I did today.
Yeah. And it's been great to be here. It's been great to be in your office in this very nice studio. Again, congratulations for this. Congratulations for your startup. As we have said during this conversation, I totally align that we need requirements. What we need to work is in how to manage them with as little overhead as possible.
At the end of every podcast episode, I give the opportunity to my guests to address, to give advice. I know you gave me advice that you learned the most on your own mistakes. You gave the analogy with a lion. You can trust that there's a lion in a room, but if you go and open, and if you want to say something, it's optional. You don't have to. But
yeah, well, as I said, you learn from your own mistakes. I made a bunch of mistakes in my life. You can see the gray hair both from stress and age. When it comes to startup, the message will be, if you want to do something, if you are passionate about something, if you have an idea, do it. Just don't look back in 20 years and regret not having done something. But be careful with the unicorns also, because we are told the story of the unicorn. You have the $1 million idea that we talked before. Be ready to lose everything you put in your startup, because there is a chance it will be like that. 90% of the startup, or I think 80% of the startup, don't survive the first year. 90 don't survive the second. There is a chance you will, but you tried. So my advice is, if you have a passion, if you have the idea to do something, try it.
Nice words. Thank you for that. This was 4th episode of the Stragedy podcast. I was hosting Igor Modino. Thanks for watching. Go to our website, SwipeSpec.com. There's a waiting list form there. Fill it up. I'll make sure that you get in the app as soon as possible, and share this if you liked it, like it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you.